Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part. This is episode 69, and Darin and I were saying kind of off the air, it's like, wow, we didn't know we'd done that many already. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. But tonight, or today, as you may be listening to this, we've got a special guest, Lucas Minton from the Grand Lodge of Arkansas, and we'll let Lucas kind of get into his Masonic bio and stuff. But Lucas, we want to just extend you a warm welcome, at least from Illinois. That's where Darin and I are. So you're just down the road. We say a piece in Arkansas. So welcome. And if you don't mind, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you personally and maybe some of your Masonic background.
Well, thank you, brethren, for having me. I'm sorry that y'all got to this point. You are having to talk to people from Arkansas to keep it interesting. So I'll do my best to keep you guys engaged here because I feel kind of boring if I'm being honest. So my Masonic bio, I got into the fraternity when I was 21 years old. So I petitioned in 2002, and I had talked about being a Mason for a long time. My lodge is Mount Pleasant Lodge number 99 in Ward, Arkansas. And I'm actually the fourth generation there. And growing up, my dad went to lodge, and my grandfather and my uncle, when I was younger, he eventually quit going. But anyway, they all were active. And a lot of people in our community that I knew were Masons. My mom, when I was younger, was in Eastern Star. And you kind of looked around, though, and you saw that all these great people that you met and that you interacted with were Masons. And my family, we had, which Illinois used to have quite a bit. We were dairy farmers. And so we're dairy community, and a lot of the dairy folks, they were all Masons and all good folks. And a lot of them actually were members at the lodge that I'm a member of, and the ones that weren't were a member of another lodge that has since merged with us, but those were kind of the rural kind of dairy lodges, if you will. So I got in 2002 in November, and I had a very high bar from my folks, or my dad specifically, my dad and my grandfather, and they're like, we don't play. We take it seriously. You're going to get in there. You're going to do your work, and you're going to get your next degree. And then you're going to get in there, and you're going to do your work, and you're going to get your master's degree. And that's the way we do it, because we take this seriously. So that's what I did. It was interesting, though, because I was in college. So I was a senior, and I had to essentially get a little piece of paper to go find someone who would lecture me about 90 miles away.
Yeah.
And when you don't know what you do or don't know, and someone's like, did you really take the degree? You're like, I was there. I mean, here's my paper. Anyway, so I got lectured in college, and I'd run back to Ward. In the end of December, I got my fellowcraft degree and came back as quick as I could in January to get my master's degree. And then I was so let down. I was like, I wanted to have them like exactly 1 month apart. They're like, listen, a master's degree is a lot of work. You can't just show up here and turn in your degree or turn in your catechism or your lectures, we call it, and then get it the same night. It's just not going to happen. And so I had to wait till the 1st of February to get my master's degree in 2003. And then that was the only night that I ever sat in lodge with my grandfather, because he died May of that year. So I have one picture of the three of us in our aprons in front of the altar. That's probably my biggest Masonic prized possession.
Yeah, that's, it's funny. You talk about those dairy farms, and I live on a farm, in a rural area too. And I remember one of the older gentlemen from one of my lodges, he's since passed on, but, he would you talk about how serious they took it. And he goes, well, yeah, we'd be working on, even Friday night or whatever day they had lodge. And, you'd come in, and as he said, you'd come in and get off the tractor, get cleaned up, and you'd go to lodge. And it's just what you did. And, I look at, farms up here, and I'm sure they're no different in Arkansas. They've, of course, grown in size. And so there's a lot of pressure to get the crops out, because there's no more days than there were, 50 years ago. But the amount of pressure on them, and, today we don't have very many farmers in our lodge anymore, just because, one, there's not very many farmers. I don't know that they would stop production to come in like they did, a generation or two ago. And so that just, as you were talking about those farms, that really made me think about how much we've changed in terms of society and, our lodge practices and whatnot. But nonetheless, I think we're still, we're here and we can do serious things. We'll get into some of that. The picture, you talk about that picture of your the 3 generations of you. That's phenomenal, really. And the fact that at least it timed out to where your grandfather could see you do that. And, in so many cases in that generation, of course, they never talked about it. And of course, at all. And I imagine he and your dad both were beaming with pride to see, I assume they kind of expected you to do it, but at the same time, you still do come of your own free will and accord. And, that had to be quite a family event to be there and be part of that. So I'll just say congratulations, because that's awesome. So,
well, like I said, that's always been a big thing to me. I don't know, maybe you call it failure to launch. I still don't live too far from my folks. I mean, they're a mile away. I mean, I live on a little ways up from the family farm. And it's funny because, I'm a member of a rural lodge. And of course, you see how I look.
Right.
And I wear this to lodge because this is my day to day. But the other thing is that it's so interesting to me. All those guys, all those farmers, they got off that tractor. They went in the house. They cleaned up. Now, they didn't wear a coat and tie, but they wore Sunday clothes when they went to lodge.
Yes.
And if they had, if they wore jeans, or if they had, if they wore overall wears, I don't remember any overall wears. I mean, they wore the good clothes.
Right.
And that's one thing I like to kind of drive home to people is, I'm not asking you to do something that I'm not going to do myself, but I'm also not going to ask you to do anything that farmers didn't think was important enough to do. I guess that's kind of culture, at least at our lodge.
Yeah. And I that's, ours, we've not maintained that to that extent. I'll give Darin credit. He puts a lot of effort in also to wearing appropriate stuff. Sometimes I'm hit or miss, to be honest about it. But I think there is something about, like you say, you don't have to wear a coat and tie. And we'll probably go down a rabbit hole here, but why not? That's what we do in this kind of parking lot kind of podcast format. But there is something about, coming for lodge, because it does make you feel different when you're dressed, other than just shorts and tennis shoes and whatever else. There is something about it. Like you say, I don't think you have to wear the tux or the suit and tie, but there is kind of that business casual today is dressing up, versus, other generations. But it does say something, I think, about the respect that you give, not just to the lodge, but more importantly, the others that are there. Because, the lodge, as we all know, that's just a physical building. But, to me, the lodge is the brethren that are there with you that night. So, and so anyway, I think it's noble you do that. So were you in Demolay or anything, or just anything as a youth, or did they even have Demolay in your area? Or
we do have Demolay. I actually, it's a funny thing. We have Demolay just right up the road, 4 to 5 miles from my lodge, but that was never something I was involved with. I don't even know when that chapter opened, if I'm being honest. But I became a Master Mason, moved back home, and as soon as I found out like it was a thing, they're like, "Hey, you're 21, you're about to be 22. You should be with these young men in Demolay." So I started going to the Demolay stuff, and I was a dad, which was a very strange feeling to me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a Demolay, and I was such a young Mason. I always felt like I was kind of in a weird place. Not that anybody was unfriendly or anything. I just felt kind of awkward because I was like, I wasn't these guys, but I really didn't feel like I was those guys either. So I was like, And then work kind of came in, and I ended up working third shift. One of those, you get out of college and you do what you can do.
Right.
And I ended up working third shift out here at Remington. And that will absolutely mess with your sleep schedule. And that will absolutely put an end to a lot of your lodge goings too.
Yeah. Yeah, we've lost some younger brethren too, because same thing, they get a job. We have one younger guy, one of the lodges Darin and I are affiliated with, and he's a police officer, and he works nights, and now he works a little bit away, but he tried to come as much as he could, but you just can't compete sometimes with sleep and third shift and all that. So it's just one of the realities of of life. So Well, let me pass you to Darin. You had met Darin, and I'll let Darin maybe get into how you guys got connected, and we'll just kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah, so I met Lucas at South Pasadena Masonicon this past year in South Pasadena, California, and just had some conversation with him, and what really struck me was I think we were talking about Masonic education, something you said, Lucas, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but basically, you wanted to, I think, have all the tools at your disposal, and that's kind of what got you involved in attending these conferences. And then I saw you were out in Seattle at Esoterica Lodge out there for an event that they had. So, I know we were going to talk about a little bit about your hopefully upcoming time in the Grand East, which I think is 2 years away for you now, or
February of 2027.
There we go. So
knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Yeah. I mean, the favors can always change, as you know. So yeah, I was just really struck by meeting Lucas and just seeing his passion and just his personality. As you can, I know you've just met him, Greg, but just great. I think you're just a solid dude, Lucas, and just really a blessing in my life to have met you. So I guess, why don't we talk a little about Arkansas Freemasonry, because I know very little about it. Our former host, rest in peace, Bill Hostler, had moved to your grand jurisdiction. I think he'd been there about a year before he passed, so we know a little bit about it, but he was in Fayetteville area. And so why don't you tell us about Arkansas Freemasonry, and then maybe if you want to transition into things that you're maybe wanting to do for your time in the Grand East without revealing too many of your secret plans.
For better or ill, you guys have picked the history nerd to be on here. So like I can just ramble. Y'all might have to just shut me down at some point. Be like, come on now. But I can give you. I'll do my best to give you a quick little rundown on Arkansas Freemasonry. So Grand Lodge of Arkansas was formed in 1838, and it was formed by three active jurisdictions that had put 4 charters in Arkansas. Now we kind of give a little bit of an honorable mention to Kentucky, because the first charter that came to Arkansas was from Kentucky, and it went down to Arkansas Post originally, and it didn't stick. They ended up turning in the charter a couple years later, but we did end up getting another charter from 2 charters from Louisiana, a charter from Tennessee, and a charter from Alabama. So what is now Washington number 1 is from Tennessee. What is now Western Star number 2 is from Louisiana. Mount Horeb, which was number 4, was from Alabama, and then the other one from Louisiana was Morning Star Lodge. So came out in 1837. It's like, hey, we have 4 lodges in Arkansas. Let's form our own grand jurisdiction. So came together in 1838, and off we went. Arkansas is kind of a different spot, not just Masonically. Of course, it is that too, compared to many places, but it's a different spot if you kind of look at our demographic, or I should say even our demographic, our population versus kind of the states around us. We're kind of a whole in population. I'd always thought that was really interesting in what it ended up. I was reading this article a number of years ago, and it talked about when we had the New Magic earthquake, series of earthquakes, I think it was 1811 through 1813, they had a series of them. It leveled somewhere around 1 million acres of timber, and so it was almost impossible to get in and out of Arkansas. And so we were kind of insulated, so it made Freemasonry slow to grow in Arkansas, slow to take off, because it's hard for folks to get here. You had to either go around Arkansas and come down, or you had to go around Arkansas on the bottom side and come up. And so it's always been kind of interesting from a historical point of view, for me, that forms so much of what I now experience in Arkansas personally. But anyway, due to all that stuff, though, Arkansas has always been a more poor state. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. And so it's interesting because, of course, you have your Blue Lodge come in, and then you have your York Rite bodies come in, and then our Scottish Rite bodies came in, and actually were brought here by Albert Pike to Little Rock. And he was also our first SGIG. But he was made a Mason in Little Rock at Western Star number 2. And what's really, really interesting about all that is he also started a lodge, which is still in existence in Little Rock, Magnolia Lodge, number 60, I think that's right. But I say all that to say he actually wrote in his, I guess you say his correspondence to Albert Mackey that Arkansas was such a poor state that the members couldn't pay, they couldn't afford to take the Scottish Rite degrees at the what you would call full cost of the day because it was such a poor state. So it's Freemasonry here in Arkansas was kind of a slow thing to start and kind of a slow thing to kind of take off. But of course, just like everywhere else, Civil War happened and it shut down all Masonry in Arkansas. I'm very fortunate I'm a member of Mount Pleasant number 99 because we were in existence. We were founded the same year actually Scottish Rite was in Arkansas, 1856. But we have a lot of our old minutes. And so I'm currently the secretary, and every now and then the secretary will read some of the old minutes. And so last year, one of the minutes I read, now we'd read them years ago, but it's the one that everybody likes to read about. It's like, Mount Pleasant Lodge number 99, and some of those old minutes actually said ancient free and accepted Masons, which is really interesting. And we've actually moved the lodge a couple times, so it talked about where it was meeting at the time, and it said, so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so were the officers, and then it said, Brother such and such gave a report that a federal scout had been seen at such and such area, and the lodge was closed without further ceremony. And so it's kind of neat to have access to some of those things and read through that and look at that and some of the other lodges that have those things still. Not that we're a super old jurisdiction, but that is one of the neat things that we do have that we're able to kind of look back on. And after Civil War, though, and I don't know how interested or how much you guys pay attention to any of the stuff that comes out of Quattuor Coronati, but they had a book come out at the end of 23 for the anniversary of the Constitutions, Anderson's Constitutions. And there's a paper in there by Dr. John Calday, who's one of our members, and he talked about, after the Civil War, the rebuilding of the Grand Lodge of Arkansas, as well as the rebuilding of the Grand Lodge for the Prince Hall affiliate in Arkansas, and how they were both very, very active in the higher education in Arkansas and the founding of the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville and the University of Arkansas in Pine Bluff. And they actually had members on the two boards. So we saw that. That's kind of an interesting little piece if you guys get a chance to take a look at that. Kind of, we just went around. We have an interesting handful of brethren who were Arkansas Masons. One of them that really sticks out, his name was E.H. English. He was General Grand High Priest of Royal Archmasons, had probably the best what's called epithet on his tombstone, and it said, in all times, in all her highest offices, he was the pride and glory of Freemasonry in Arkansas. And he served 10 years, not all in a row, but there's a good couple in a row. He served 10 years as Grand Master of Arkansas. And our digest of law has certain pieces of it that it'll just have like a man should do this, and it is just attributed Grand Master English. He's kind of one of our and actually there was a lodge named E.H. English Lodge. That's the one I referred to that actually merged with my lodge. But he was one of the guys who really was well thought of outside the state. And then toward the end of the 19th century, we had a couple brethren. One who was named James Austin Henry, who was Sovereign Grand Inspector General for Scottish Rite, and a handful of guys. They got together and they revived the Scottish Rite Valley in Little Rock and really set the brethren in Arkansas kind of on fire, and was kind of coming up in that age of fraternalism, golden age of fraternalism. Brother Rosenbaum later became SGIG after Brother Henry died in a Masonic accident, of all things. He fell through a hole in the floor, I'm sure, or a ceiling, I should say. I'm sure you guys can put that together on your own. Anyway, he died, and Brother Rosenbaum became the new SGIG in Arkansas. And it kind of ushered in a new era for Arkansas because he was a man of means and was able to jump on the train and go wherever. Him and the brethren, but mostly him, he purchased a synagogue in Little Rock, and it became the first Scottish Rite temple. He then built, along with the brethren in Little Rock, the first purpose-built Scottish Rite temple with lights, stage, sound effects, all the roving, all this stuff. Expanded it again in 1912, I think it was. And then the final time in 1922, we laid the cornerstone for the temple we have now and moved in there in 1924. And in 1919, our Grand Lodge building had burned down. And so at that point, the Grand Lodge came in and they decided this is what kind of makes Arkansas different. They said, the Grand Lodge said, we would like to be a co-owner in a building with you. And the Scottish Rite said, we're not looking for co-owners, but we're looking for tenants. And so the Grand Lodge said, that sounds good to us. We'll give you, some money if you'll abate our rent. And it was a tune of about $400,000, and they got their rent abated for, I think it was like 40 or 45 years. And they built our temple we have in Arkansas, in Little Rock. And it is the hub for all Freemasonry in Arkansas. So the Grand Lodge offices are there. Scottish Rite Orient offices are there. We have the office for we have York Rite buddies on the north end. At our high point, we had 4 Blue Lodges. We now have 2. Lodge of Research, we just rechartered our Lodge of Research. It meets there. And we have our Grand York Rite for Arkansas as office there. And then General Grand Chapter, York Rite International, now has an office in there too. So, like I said, it's kind of the hub of Arkansas. And that kind of put us on a little bit different trajectory than a lot of places. And we've just kind of been going ever since. Bumps in the road. I mean, that's everywhere. Of course, we're, declining membership is everywhere. But what makes Arkansas different also is that we've got, we still adhere to, I should say, a very regimented kind of, some places. I know Washington, when I was up in Seattle, they told me it was called the posting lecture. We call it just the lecture. So we don't have ciphers in Arkansas. It's all old school mentorship, word, mouth to ear, word of mouth, however you want to look at it. And that's the way it is for our lectures. That's the way it is if you want to learn how to confer a degree, how to work in a degree. I mean, we've got monitors, but all that other work is still done the old fashioned way. And so right now we've got about, I think it's 9,800, maybe 9,900 Masons in Arkansas. And, which is a lot considering no bigger than the state is and how some other states have fallen off so much. And I can only attribute it to, on some level, our Blue Lodges pushing so hard, that mentorship from those elder members. I don't mean necessarily mean age as much as they've just been there. They've learned that work. One of my best friends, he came into my lodge in 2015. Me and him actually share an office. We rent some space in our Scottish Rite Temple together. But that was, that's how me and him kind of linked up. I met him in Rotary. I gave him his petition. He joined the lodge. And then as time went on, I lectured him. We just became, always together. And I think that's one of the things that has helped us in Arkansas through. I mean, everybody knows we've had our shrine blow-ups, over the last 25 years. We've had 2 of those. One we're still reeling from, and one that one cost us a lot of membership. I mean, I'm no need to pretend it didn't. But the fact that we have what we have, I'd attribute to a lot of that mentorship that we force on our new members, and we force those guys to become, myself included, to become mentors, and force them into those relationships. And it's kind of a sneaky way to make leaders, I think. I think that's one of the kind of secret sauces, if you will. That's probably a lot more history than y'all care about. I'm sorry.
No, I think I love history. You can't see all the books behind me, but I'm sure probably some of the same ones you've got. But, that mentorship that you mentioned, we don't do a good enough job locally. I won't speak for our Grand Lodge. I mean, they provide all the materials. No Grand Lodge can fix, your local issue. Everything has to be locally driven. And so at times, I think when we've mentored strongly, we've seen a lot of success. And then when we get lazy about it, we don't do as well. And, those members tend to drift off over time. And, when you look at where society is in general, male loneliness and just everything that we talk about, disconnectedness. It's funny. I listened to this podcast today and it was talking about, I think it was the Art of Manliness podcast. And his guests, they were talking about, relationships and how that helps your health, not just your mental health, but just overall. And because it's such an innate human trait, for us to be together in different venues versus society now. We're kind of going down this walk the road by yourself, because you can, because technology and other things enable that. But I still think we don't do collectively a good enough job of touting that mentorship as one of the primary benefits you get out of Freemasonry. I mean, it's like, somebody says, well, what am I going to get out of that? Well, sometimes it's hard to describe, what you get, but you get that friendship and that mentorship. And to me, that's one of the huge benefits of being in the fraternity is exactly that. Here now we're going to be friends after tonight, just because we have these shared bonds. So I'm glad to hear you bring that up.
I'm going to show you this because you talk about the mentorship. One of my Masonic mentors, his name was Carl Kimball. Fantastic man. He a scholar in Masonry. Wanted to know everything about the history, everything about the esoteric, everything. He wanted to know everything, but he had a couple of us guys over to his house, and he said, and very outspoken too. He'd ruffled quite a few feathers in his time, and he had a couple of us guys over at his house, and he said, brethren, I just want you to know, he said, our membership may be declining. He said, but I've yet to feel as good about Masonry as I do right now with you brethren here. He said, because y'all are all significantly younger than me. And he said, I feel like your hearts are where hearts should have been for the last 50, 60 years. And this is the book, The Emperor, New Life of Charles V by Jeffrey Parker. And he gave this to me that night, and he told me a little bit about it. And he said, I don't expect you to read it until you have just absolutely nothing else to do. But he believed in, giving away books. And he wrote me a note to Lucas, a brother after my own heart. Anyway, love the guy to death. We had our Scottish Rite reunion in October of 2020, and we had, everybody's social distancing and all that stuff. And Brother Carl, he met everybody in that class. He did all this class work for these guys. Everybody thought he was just the best thing since sliced bread. And the following Thursday, he was gone. He went to, this tells you shouldn't ever go to the gym. He went to the gym and he worked out and he died. And I told my wife, I said, I'm never going to the gym again because I don't want to die.
I should live to be 100 then. So
there you go. But, I would have never met Carl had I not been a Mason. I mean, there's just, he lived in Little Rock. I mean, I'm about 30 miles away. He's an insurance agent. I didn't need an insurance agent. I mean, we just would have never crossed paths. And he was someone who just meant the world to me.
Well, I think, and I'm going to flip it back to Darin here, but that's exactly how we ended up here tonight, because Freemasonry bought you two's paths together. And, to me, it's all these intangible things that are the powerful benefits you get out of Freemasonry. Yeah, you can get all the titles and medals and all that stuff, and that's all cool. I mean, we've all got a bunch of them. But at the end of the day, it's about human relationships and building on those that, to me, is the absolute foundational level of society. And I won't go down a long tangent on that, but to me, that's where we're in the general society. We lack some of these things, and we've got the tools right in front of us if we'll just use them and maybe get some more folks in that could benefit from what we do.
Well, speaking of exercise and almost killing somebody, a little aside, I was, I think, a newly minted Master Mason, and we thought as a lodge we'd do a 5K together. It'd be a way to bring some of the brethren together. So I think about 4 or 5 of us did the 5K, and Greg and I met Greg through scouting. My son was a Tiger Cub, and Greg's son was a Tiger Cub, and Greg was the Tiger Cub leader, and I was probably, I think, the only dad or one of few that kind of stuck around to help Greg out with the group of 14 or 15 young men. And so Greg is actually who got me into Freemasonry, and now he jokes that I've been his intern since that point, and probably until I die. Like, I'm also secretary at 2 lodges, but I think I will probably be Greg's intern longer than I'll be secretary at those lodges. So, but I ended up getting something called compartment syndrome and had to have emergency surgery. And so, needless to say, anytime Greg brings up any sort of strenuous activity in the lodge, I promptly veto it. But I just, the thing that, Lucas, that I just love about Freemasonry is that it's not only the guys you meet, but the quality of the men that you meet. And they're all just, I mean, I've met very few that are not in it for the right reason. And you know, every guy that I met, either speaking or just, through my Masonic travels, just even out in the wild, you just know when you have that guy, identify himself however he does as a Mason, that you can trust, you can trust that he's a great individual. And without fail, I found that to be the case. And so I love hearing stories like you tell, because, we all have kind of those similar stories of men in our lives that have influenced us. There was one of our old timers who passed now quite a few years ago. I think it was pre-COVID that Carl Lewis passed, wasn't it, Greg? But he was a ball turret gunner on a bomber in World War II, and served as Tyler at our lodge there in Homer, Illinois, and just, that type of class individual and guys from that generation would have never, ever been able to have, met guys like that without Freemasonry. So, the power of Freemasonry to unite generations over, a common bond, which is the work and the ritual, but also, being able to have fellowship with those guys and getting to know a little bit about their lives and kind of their upbringing and where they came from. It's just been, it's truly a blessing for me. I think I'd be remiss. I know I asked you about the history of Arkansas Freemasonry. There are some follow-up questions. You mentioned PHA. Now, you recognize them, correct, in Arkansas, or do you not recognize them? You do not. Okay.
We have not got that one put to bed yet.
Okay. I wasn't
now,
sure.
Obviously, I do not speak for the Grand Master nor the Grand Lodge of Arkansas. There is hopefully, like I said, hopefully we'll get that put to bed in the not too distant future. I don't know how much you guys have had to be on any kind of recognition stuff, but I'm going to use my brother Carl's term when he sent me some paperwork for SRICF college. He called it Byzantine. And so recognition process can be a little Byzantine. So at least the way, and this is the way I understand most jurisdictions are, the younger jurisdiction has to apply to the older jurisdiction for the recognition, for it to be done properly. So with that said, you just have to, everybody has to get on the same page beforehand. So hopefully we're going to be on the same page very soon.
And are you, because you mentioned that that you saw in some of the minutes that you were ancient, free, and accepted. Are you free and accepted currently, or?
We are free and accepted currently.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a funny thing because we had Louisiana was ancient, free, and accepted, and then they became free and accepted. Also, they're our neighbor, and we have a lot of the. We stole a lot of culinary stuff from them. I'll just call it like it is. And a lot of French influence in down there, but there's quite a bit here too. If you look at some of the names of things in Arkansas, like the name Arkansas, you're like, there's a whole lot of letters that shouldn't even be in that word. So I get it. But I say all that to say they have had 3 Grand Lodges due to language differences in Louisiana. And at some point they went from ancient, free, and accepted to free and accepted as well. I've got, we've got a Arkansas Masonic History Facebook group, and there was a picture from turn of last century where there was one of the lodges actually still showed ancient, free, and accepted Masons. And like I said, my part of my old lodge minutes say ancient, free, and accepted, but everything says free and accepted. So at some point, I think they're like, hey, we got to kind of pick one. And I think there might have been some confusion on the more rural lodge parts because your charter says Ancient York Masons. So I think maybe that's where that might have came from. Unfortunately, there's no one I can ask. No one knows. But it was a funny thing because one of our brethren who's helped restart this research lodge, he texted me. It was probably 11:30 midnight the other night. He said, "Can you? Why does this say ancient, free, accepted?" I said, "Oh, you've discovered it now. This is going to bother you." I was like, "This is going to bother you." And he started texting me, and he's like, "This makes no sense." I said, "It doesn't." I said, "And you're going to have to go to sleep, and you're going to have to learn to live with this, just like I have." I said, "There's no one we can ask." I said, "And no one has found it in the proceedings why it shows up and then why it disappears. It's just like you could see the proof it was there, but there's no rhyme or reason, and it's completely bizarre. It's completely bizarre."
Yeah, isn't the history stuff just endlessly fascinating? I mean,
it is. It is so interesting to me.
You go down these rabbit holes on one thing, and then it just sort of snakes out into 50 or endless amounts of direction. And, that's some days I just do it sitting here serving. It's like, oh, let me go look up something and then go start on Wikipedia. Then you quickly, migrate to more normal, mainstream. It's just fascinating what you can learn. I'm glad to hear you got the Lodge of Research going again, because they play, I think, a vital role in the continuity of history of a lot. Leadership comes and goes. The Grand Lodge office always is obviously important for, administrative stability, but lodges of research really give us that sense of who we are, and keep that history that otherwise is quickly lost, kind of bring it for those that have either not heard it or maybe they're not even a Freemason yet. So Illinois, we've got a Lodge of Research that's been active for maybe about 50 years, Darin, and it's gaining steam again. Like everything, I think over time they ebb and flow depending on who's got the energy behind them. But I'm glad to hear Arkansas is doing that, because I think that's a vital part of the portfolio for a successful Grand Lodge, to go forward.
Yeah, that's the only title I actually I care about. I'm a fellow of the Illinois Lodge of Research, and that's one thing that I'm very proud of, and was very surprised with the honor when it was bestowed upon me a few years ago. I think that knock on wood, Education Illinois, and we'll segue to Education Arkansas here in a second. But Masonic Education Illinois, I think where we've turned a direction, we finally have a chairman who is, in my opinion, doing a fantastic job, really serves as a great liaison with Grand Lodge and communicating what Grand Lodge wants and desires to our committee. One of the things that we started now, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years. It doesn't seem that long, but we do an educational newsletter for our membership every month, or we try, I should say, every month. I think there have been a couple months where we've come out with a double issue, so to speak, but where we've just basically have this newsletter, EMAG, if you will, dedicated completely to Masonic education. And so, I'm very proud to serve on the committee for the Grand Lodge of Illinois for Masonic Education. And so I think that I used to be one of those education guys who was like, everybody wants education, everybody needs education. I've come to realize that the old saying, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, applies to Masonic EDU, that there are guys who are going to seek it out and be passionate about it, but you can't, it's not something that some guys are going to be into, and that's okay too. I mean, the beauty of Freemasonry is I think that there's a place for everyone to get involved and to, explore their passions, and we can all coexist. So, all that being said, Lucas, what is the state of Masonic Education Arkansas? Do you have a committee, or is it something that's pushed by Grand Lodge, or is it just kind of laissez-faire? Or can you not comment?
No, I can. It's actually a really interesting topic. there was a committee for a number of years. Actually, if you go back, I would say probably, and I haven't went and looked specifically in our proceedings to make sure this is true, but I would almost hazard a guess that our Grand Lodge Education Committee probably formed after our Research Lodge shut down. And my understanding about our Research Lodge shutting down was there was just a lot of confusion about how does the Grand, they don't make Masons there. But they don't, are you really a past master if you're a master of research lodge? So I think there were a lot of questions. And I think the Grand Master at the time just said, you know what, we're just done with it. And I think after that, so I just have an education committee. I've never seen that proceedings, but I have seen enough past Grand Masters that I can absolutely imagine that happening. And so we had a committee for a number of years, put together a number of things. They used the short talk bulletins. They used, any number of stuff from the national publications. But one of the other things they did is they put together a couple of resources for the lodges where it's, okay, you're the junior deacon. This is what you should be doing as junior deacon. You are the junior warden. And kind of mapping out what you should be doing in your lodge for any particular officer position, as well as, what might be some pertinent pieces of history for Masonry in Arkansas. Now, I would say that probably really fell off mid to late 90s, I would say, maybe early 2000s. And so a couple of years ago, we had a Grand Master who said, we don't have that committee active anymore. And he put a couple guys on it. He said, essentially, go get them. But you guys know how it is. If there's not a lot of direction, a lot of wheels spinning, I think we should do this. No, I think we should do this. And hasn't really just blown up yet. But I think this Research Lodge restarting, Arkansas Research Lodge restarting, is going to be probably the best thing for that, as well as education in general in Arkansas. And it's funny, I got to give a shout out to one of the people who's been absolutely instrumental in making this Research Lodge take back off is Brother Bradley Kohanke, who's actually originally a Texas Mason. And he got up here, he moved up here in 2023, and he said, do you not have a research lodge? I said, no, shut down years and years ago. And anyway, he talked with another one of our brethren, Brother Will Teeter, younger Mason. Will's in his 20s, and Will is also a big history guy like me and Brother Kohanke, and they kept tossing around, and then they hollered at me earlier in the year and said, would you be interested in being a member if we got this thing going again? I said, absolutely. I'm there because like you guys said, this is part of that healthy portfolio for a Grand Lodge to have. And so I guess it was about a month and a half ago, they got the Grand Master to go on and get the dispensation started up. And so hopefully everything will be, and the funny part is they said, we need to make sure that everybody's on board with this. So they've got one past Grand Master as the first new master of the lodge, another past Grand Master who's the current SGIG as Senior Warden, and our current Grand Master as the Junior Warden. And so it's got I would call it having the force the Grand Lodge behind it, and all those brethren know how important it's going to be for Arkansas Masonry moving forward. And both the past Grand Master, Jared Atkinson, he was Grand Master in 2013, very, very, very knowledgeable about Arkansas Masonry, Grand Lodge of Arkansas specifically, but Masonry in general. But anyway, he actually tried to get it started back in 2013 and ran into some problems trying to get it restarted as Grand Master. And then Brother Graham, our SGIG, another guy who just loves Masonic history, just loves, and I mean, he specifically loves Arkansas, but he loves all Masonic history. And so these guys, plus our current Grand Master, really putting their hand behind it and pushing, I feel like that's what's going to make us carry the day. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, that's great news, I think. So when you look, do lodges or Arkansas lodges doing much Masonic education? And of course, education can vary widely, on what you think it may or may not be, but do you see a little bit of resurgence at the local level perhaps too?
So I am an oddity because once again, I'm in this rural lodge, but we have Masonic education every month. Now, I'm not telling you that we are going to drill down into some deep comparative religion or Kabbalah study, nothing like Kabbalah, however you want to pronounce it. So we're not doing something like that, but we're going to have either something historical, we're going to have maybe a Masonic memoir, or we're going to have something about applying the working tools in your everyday life. And of all people, once again, the best things are always stolen. I do like to say that. I stole that, obviously. Our treasurer at our lodge, Brother Scott Salmon, he is originally a Kansas Mason, moved to Arkansas in 2003, 2004. He was master of our lodge in 2009, and then he eventually, about 10 years ago, became treasurer. I think it's 10 years this year. And Brother Salmon, he said, I'll say it was right before COVID, he said, we need to start doing Masonic education every month. And everybody's like, oh, okay. And that's what he does. He'll find something, or he'll talk to me or one of the other guys, and one of us will have. Most of the time, he really enjoys doing it, so we let him do it. But if he's not going to be there, one of the rest of us, so we'll put something together. And that's one thing that people have commented on when they come to our lodge. I would not expect to go to Ward, Arkansas, and hear Masonic education. So we do it pretty religiously. There's Will, who I mentioned earlier, who's helping get the research lodge restarted. He's a member of Western Star number 2. He affiliated there. He actually is from further up the road, kind of heading toward West Arkansas, but he lives in Central Arkansas now, and he joined Western Star, and there's this rich history, and he said, I feel like I should be a member here, and because it's one of the charter lodges, and so he has pushed it there. And so a lot of stuff he does is historical, either Grand Lodge Arkansas, Western Star, or they've as far as Arkansas goes, they've got a lot of the who's who of Arkansas Masons. And so they'll talk about those brethren or people who've came to Western Star from other places. And so they'll do it. And then Northwest Arkansas, I'll talk about Washington Lodge number 1. I mean, they're every meeting they've got some. I mean, it's we've got a handful, and I think there is another one in Little Rock, Brady Lodge. I actually one of our prospects. I introduced him yesterday to Brother Kohanke because that prospect, he's like, hey, I am interested in Masonic. He goes, I'm interested in the educational component of Freemasonry. Personally, he's very interested in comparative religion studies, and that is just not something that you're going to necessarily get at every lodge. And our Grand Lodge office, our assistant Grand Secretary, he sent me a text. He said, hey, can you give me a call when you get him in? And I called him. I said, I thought something was wrong. I always think something's wrong. And he said, hey, I just emailed you something. And I said, oh, okay. And so I go and I look, and it's a contact to call this guy. And he's interested in Freemasonry, but he's interested in a little bit different. He doesn't want to just go drink coffee. He's not that kind of Mason. He wants to go try and learn something. So he said, I think you're probably, the assistant grand secretary, he said, I think you're probably the best guy to handle this because you probably have a better idea where he should go. And I said, I think I know exactly where he should go. But to make sure, I got in contact with him. I said, hey, why don't you catch up with me? We'll have Scottish Rite tomorrow. I said, you can come up after the meeting. You can hang out, meet all these guys, meet some people from the different lodges, and we can really drill down on what you're interested in. And then, because I already had this idea in my head, this guy sounds like he wants a little deeper Masonic education than, so-and-so came to this lodge at so-and-so time at so-and-so year. And so I had that conversation with him. I was like, I think you need to go to Brady Lodge. And yesterday I was able to get him and put him together with Brother Kohanke. And so he's going on Monday to Brady Lodge to go meet those guys. And I think, especially when we get those types of prospects, I think it's the burden is on us as Masons to make sure we get those guys in the right place, because those guys can do a lot of good for the fraternity, but we will absolutely burn them out if we put them in a lodge that wants to drink coffee. Totally. I just got real serious all of a sudden. I'm sorry.
That's
totally,
all right.
Totally agree. Darin and I talked. Darin does a good job of education and a couple of our area lodges. And, what we found surprising was, and there's sometimes we don't get real deep, but deeper than just, somebody attended this meeting 100 years ago.
Right.
It was surprising the level of interest once we did it 2, 3, 4 times. And we'll have a discussion. We'll actually, a lot of times we'll do our business meeting, close it, and then do the education, pull the chairs in a semicircle, and the particular speaker talks about, whatever it is, or Darin or I, maybe we present something. But we actually get into a discussion, and it's so interesting hearing guys and their perspective when you normally wouldn't be able to draw it out of them sometimes. And I just think it's an example that every lodge can probably do it if you just sort of inch your way there. Sometimes it takes a while, but you'll be surprised who will engage on these topics. Maybe the last people you think that would, all of a sudden, really, they have some really insightful comments and things that they're sharing with the rest of us.
I do have a funny anecdote about that. I just thought we did have a couple months ago. We had the Grand Master. He through our database sent out a notification that all lodges would have Masonic Education that month. That month. And he dictated that it would be about a specific tie of a master's degree that has to do with ladies and how Masons should treat other Masons, ladies and such. And so that was our Masonic Education. On one hand, I was like, you know what? That's a good use of Grandmaster power. You need to remember what you said. You need to remember how you're supposed to act. But beyond that, when we had our stated meeting, I said, brethren, I read the correspondence. This is what the Grandmaster says. And I said, so we'll go on and talk about it. And so that's what we did. We were still in the meeting though. We didn't close the meeting down for it, but we got some participation. We got some participation for sure. But that was probably the first. Hopefully, that'll be the only time we have a Grandmaster required Masonic Education with a specific topic in mind, because normally that won't be a good thing, I would think.
Well, I guess we're kind of getting along here in our hour. Time flies when you're just, talking. We're just going and going and going.
Those parking lot conversations, Greg,
yeah.
They just go on and on and on.
Right.
That's true.
Is there anything you wanted to mention we didn't kind of, there's so many things we could talk about, but anything specifically you want to mention while we got you here?
Well, obviously I want to make sure you both know you're invited to our grand session. It's always the first week of February. So first Thursday is when the session fires up at 10 o'clock, and then Friday at 9. And so that will be, that's why I keep the handy dandy computer, because I always know I'm going to need a date at some point. So it'll be the 5th and 6th of 2026. So you're most welcome to attend that. And then if you want to come make fun of me in 2027, that'll once again be that'll be the 4th and 5th of February. But so anyway, I would be remiss if I didn't invite you to our grand session. Also, we're not Guthrie. We don't do all the degrees at our Scottish Rite yet. I'm going to try and get that going one day. But we do have a very good fall reunion. We have a lot of folks come in from out of state. We've got some barrack style rooms that we put some folks up in. So definitely, if you guys are interested in coming down and just visiting, you're more than free to do that as well. But as far as anything else beyond that, I feel it's really important, especially after meeting Darin at South Pasadena and all the other wonderful brethren, that I meet from other jurisdictions like you, Greg, and, Dago that introduced us, all these guys that I meet. I can't underline enough and underline, put an exclamation mark behind how important it is for us as Masons to travel. And it's important to travel in your jurisdiction. There are many lodges that might not can do a single degree on their own without some help. So yes, that's important. And we as Masons have to give to one another. Not doubting that. I'm not diminishing that at all. But it's good for the soul for us to recharge ourselves. And I feel that I'm able to do that when I'm able to go to other jurisdictions and I can bring something home to the brethren here. And so I think if that was one thing that I really want to put out there is I feel like I was listening to, one of you guys' episodes where y'all were talking about right sizing. And one of the things I feel like that, comes with this right sizing, and I think it's actually kind of a good thing, is as we don't have 10 lodges within 5 miles of each other, we're going to have to do a little more traveling. We're going to have to see some new things. But I think on a personal level, I believe that as we go to more of a, my friend Brett from Esoterica Lodge, he calls it a pilgrimage model. I think as we go to these types of pilgrimage models where we go to a Masonicon, or I go to, a reunion in, Guthrie, or I went to one a couple years ago in Monroe, Louisiana. We had some guys come up here from the 16th Masonic District in New Orleans to do the Scottish Rite EA a couple weeks ago. that was their pilgrimage. They're on their way right now to Spokane, if I remember. That's their next pilgrimage. But as we do this, like this is, I can't make anyone understand how good it feels to be able to go to other jurisdictions, to travel into those foreign countries, if you will, and see these new ways of doing things, meet these brethren you wouldn't have otherwise met. It's just so enriching. And for me as a Grand Lodge officer, that was one of the things when I ran, I thought, I was like, I know some out-of-state people, and I'm not afraid to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and go somewhere where I don't know anybody. And even if I don't find a soul to talk to, just sit and listen, and then take that back home. I can do that. And I think that's important. I think that's important for all of us to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. Darin, any final thoughts or comments for Lucas?
Just want to thank you, Lucas, for coming on and spending some time with us tonight. Again, think the world of you. Can't wait to talk to you some more and get to know more about you. And Greg and I like to travel, so we might just hop on 57 and find ourselves down in Arkansas here at some point. So I just was able last year to see a couple of the Southern Masonic jurisdiction Scottish Rite degrees, and looking forward to seeing more, because I think quite frankly, you pants the NMJ, as I say, as a proud NMJ member, but I think it's just two different philosophies. But again, just want to thank you for coming on and, taking time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with us.
I greatly appreciate you guys having me. I hope I haven't bored you too bad.
No.
Oh, Lucas, not at all. Lucas, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great meeting you. Great to have you here. We're going to do it again at some point. Darin and I definitely got to come to Arkansas, because I've not seen any of the Southern jurisdiction degrees.
Oh, well, I will tell you, Arkansas, no joke. We do the 32nd degree different than anyone else. Everybody else used to do it the way we do it. We're the last ones to do it this way. It's much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Produced. It's much more produced than you see in most jurisdictions now.
Well, that's great.
And I have, there's lots of little esoteric nuggets in the way that we do it. And our 18th degree, I have been told by people from other jurisdictions, has moved them to tears. Wow. But I really think that has to do with our ritualist, who confers that, Brother Larry Berry. He's our only living Grand Cross, and he's our grand treasure. He's a jewel in and of himself. Love to have you guys at the end of the month on the 23rd and 24th. If y'all are just bored, y'all can come on down.
You know what? You just never know. It don't take
me
long to give me 10 minutes to pack something, and on we go. But no, seriously, thank you again, Lucas, for joining us. We'll be talking to you again. We appreciate all of our listeners and hope you learned a little bit about Arkansas Freemasonry. And until next time, for another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part.